Okay guys, so what I just wanted to show you, kind of a follow-up to the previous kind of getting started with Unreal Engine for architecture video that I did, is just talk a little bit about post-processing, because that can really help to improve your final image. So one thing I like to do actually just quickly when I'm setting up a camera view is to just go into play, and then just kind of, it's easier to kind of stand in a nice position there. And when you push escape on your keyboard, it's saved your position. Just a little tip there, as I'm about to move away. What you've got in the corner is you've got this little box here. This is called a post-process volume. It's already been put in if you've used the template like I did in the video. And then if you look in the settings for that, just move this up, you've got all of these settings here, things that you can change to your final image, which includes when you're walking around. It's live as well. To really set the scene, make those improvements. So these are the ones that I would recommend using and trying out. So I'm going to close that down and that down because we don't need those for this. So one of them is called Bloom. So in fact, before I start, one thing you just want to check is that this tick box is on. This one here, it says infinite extent unbound. If that's turned on, it's going to apply post-processing to your entire scene. All right. If it's turned off, it's only going to apply post-processing to anything within this box. So if you just wanted it to be on a particular area, you can resize and move that box. But I want to make sure it's everywhere. That's fine. Back to the settings. So Bloom, if we turn that on, and then you want to turn on the intensity. So if I crank this up, you'll kind of see the effect it has. It kind of, if I really put it up, it kind of gives this almost like a glowy kind of brightness to the scene. I always like to have a little bit on there. I'll put that up to about 3. Again, all of these settings you can play with and adjust yourself, and by all means obviously try other ones as well. As I go down, we've got lens flare as well. I turn on the intensity there. I don't think it's going to work there in this particular scene because I think where I've got the sky set up, I've got quite a lot of cloud, so we can't see the sun. But when you can see the sun, you'll see that lens flare. Maybe we'll look at changing the clouds in just a moment. Image effects, you've got a vignette. So if I turn that on, you can adjust the amount of intensity of the vignette. Can help to kind of focus the eye on a particular area. Depth of field is a good one. So if I turn on the focal distance, this one works in really small numbers. So if you go 1, obviously it's really blurry, but 10 gets a bit clearer, 20, 25. This is going to be real difficult though to show you again in this scene because there's not much in the distance, but you can kind of see there, you really have to tweak that one to get it perfect. But again, for your scenes, you may have things further away in the distance, which you can use depth of field for a bit better. You've got this global one here. This is generally pretty good. So if I go to saturation, I want to turn that on. What you want to apply this to is generally the Y at the bottom because it applies to everything rather than individually changing the RG and B. So if I crank this up a little bit, I can, if it's down, it's kind of can go to full black and white if you really wanted, or like crazy bright, but you can just make the colors a bit more vibrant, and that can be really nice. Contrast, same thing. So if I turn that on, the Y, you can make it super high contrast or super low. But again, can be nice just to touch that up a little bit. Maybe saturation is a little high. Often they're real minor tweaks, but again, it's something to just get used to. Don't really use the other ones. You can pinpoint the shadows specifically. So, if I maybe wanted some darker shadows, I can up the contrast on the shadows a bit more specifically. Okay, but again, you can tweak that. Some of these things I like to just turn on: global illumination and ambient occlusion. Um, a lot of these kind of get a bit complicated, and I only want to kind of touch on the basics, but already just with that, it's kind of changed the scene up a bit. Lost it now, I'll come back to you. Just want to add a little bit more onto Bloom maybe. But when I push play to move around, this is all real time. So all that increased saturation and contrast and that bloom is all applied to everything as I move around the scene. Lovely. So the clouds, so if we go to the, is it going to be our sky atmosphere? Just need to make sure I find the right one. There is one where we can just adjust the amount of cloud. The volumetric cloud, that would probably be right, wouldn't it? So I'm stuttering because I'm used to doing this in Unreal Engine 4. So what I will do is just pause a second to, so you don't have to watch me looking around. Okay, guys. So yeah, with the cloud, it's a little different to how it was in Unreal Engine 4. But anyway, so the main settings you can change because it's these volumetric clouds. So you can change things like the altitude, the layer height, and that in itself is obviously adjusting, the view and how thick and dense the clouds are and all that kind of business as well. So you can kind of customize that as you'd like with the clouds. So it's in this volumetric cloud box here, and then in the layer option is where most things are. Another tip, so when you're adjusting things, you've got this little back arrow. If you click those, it will set them back to whatever the default is, nice and easily for you. Okay, so that's just a little look at the post-processing settings, some things that you can change really quickly and easily to change the overall look of your visualization. Yeah, and that's all for now.